Japanese north of the 38th parallel, while the United States accepted the surrender of the Japanese to the south. Now, the 38th parallel was never meant to be a political boundary nor division of country. It was merely established to help designate areas of responsibility. So in May 1948, elections were held in the south, and this man, Dr. Syngman Rhee, was elected the first president of the Republic of Korea. In September of that same year, the Soviet Union appointed Kim Il-sung to be the first premier of communist North Korea. He reigned for approximately 46 years until his death in 1994, at which point his eldest son, Kim Jong-il, succeeded him in power. Now, this marks the first ever father-to-son succession of power to take place in a communist country, and he reigned for 17 years until his death in 2011, at which point his youngest son, Kim Jong-un, succeeded him in power. Not only does this mark the second ever father-to-son succession of power to take place in a communist country, it marks the third generation of Kim family and the only family to rule over North Korea. Despite negotiations and attempts to reunify the Korean Peninsula, on the 25th of June 1950, North Korea launched a massive surprise attack. This ensuing war lasted for over 3 years and cost more than 2 million people their lives. And during the first month of this war, North Korean forces had captured most of the Korean Peninsula. However, coalition forces were finally able to stop the North Korean army's advance near the city of Busan. Over the following 4 months, the United Nations Command conducted the Incheon landing, and they pushed the North Korean forces all the way back up to the Yalu River, or the border between North Korea and China, at which point China entered into the war and helped aid North Korean war efforts. The war began to stabilize around the 38th parallel. However, to this day, a permanent settlement has not yet been reached. On the 27th of July 1953, military commanders from the United Nations Command, the Korean People's Army, and the Chinese People's Volunteers signed an armistice or a ceasefire agreement to stop the fighting. The border between North and South Korea has remained relatively the same ever since that date. This white dotted line you see here represents the military demarcation line, or the MDL, between the two countries. Under the provisions of this armistice, all military commanders were ordered to pull their troops back 2,000 meters from the last point of hostile contact, thus creating a 4-kilometer wide, 241-kilometer long demilitarized zone, or DMZ. And note the location of Seoul and its relationship to the military demarcation line. Here at Camp Boniface, we are located just 400 meters from the southern boundary of the DMZ and 2.4 kilometers from the military demarcation line itself. In the top left corner here, this gray dot is the village of Kaesong, which is where the armistice was originally signed prior to being moved to the Panmunjom, or the Joint Security Area. Although the demilitarized zone has become one of the most militarized locations in the entire world, the MDL itself consists of no fortifications. It is simply a series of 1,292 yellow and black panel markers that are spaced at 100 to 200 meter intervals. And on the southern side, these panel markers are labeled in Hangul or Korean at the top and English at the bottom. While on the northern side, they're labeled in Hangul at the top and Chinese at the bottom. Inside the Joint Security Area, the MDL is more clearly defined with these white stakes that measure 1 meter in height, and they're spaced at 10 meter intervals. And it continues through Conference Row, bisecting each building with a 17 by 5 inch concrete slab. As we travel north today, we are going to start our tour here at Camp Boniface, and we're going to exit onto the main supply route, also known as Old Highway Number 1. And that's because for over 50 years, this was the only stretch of highway that connected North and South Korea until the agreement was made to open the east and west transportation corridors. However, to this day, this is still the one and only route into the Joint Security Area for all armistice-related events. As we travel north today, I will be able to point out several different locations, to include Guard Post 240, Observation Post Olet, Taesongdong or Freedom Village, Gijongdong or Propaganda Village, the Swiss and Swedish Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission Camp, or NNSC, the former Czech and Polish NNSC, as well as several locations that are visible from Checkpoint 3. Now I'll highlight in a little bit more detail some of these areas that we are going to see, starting with Taesongdong or Freedom Village. And this is a very unique village. It's not actually under the administrative control of the Republic of Korea's government, and we have a security battalion that works here 24 hours a day to guard the villagers, and they help implement civil affairs as well as provide security for the residents. We provide security for the farmers as they work in the fields during the daytime. We also guard the village itself at night as the residents sleep. Now, residents here do have relatively large and modern homes as well as large allocations of farmland, but they also live under several restrictions inside this village as well, to include that they must be inside the village every night by nightfall. Not only that, they have to be inside their homes with all the doors and windows locked and secured by midnight. And that's because just 1,800 meters from Taesongdong, right across the military demarcation line, is Gijongdong, or Propaganda Village. Now, Propaganda Village obtained its nickname due to an extremely large speaker system located throughout the area that until June 2004 would broadcast propaganda 6 to 12 hours a day. And that propaganda could be heard all the way back here at Camp Boniface, about 2.5 kilometers away, especially at nighttime. It was very loud. This propaganda would idolize Kim Jong-il to be a great leader, and would try and coax the residents of Taesongdong as well as the rest of the Republic of Korea to defect to this so-called Village of Paradise. However, if one were to do so, they'd actually find themselves rather lonely, as this village is mostly uninhabited. We do see people here occasionally that maintain the upkeep of these buildings, or work in the Kaesong Industrial Factory, which is located directly behind the village, and sometimes they lower and raise this extremely large North Korean flag. This is one of the largest flags in the world. It has an estimated width of 17 meters and length of 31 meters. And this flag actually has to be lowered during inclement weather, or it would tear under its own weight, because it does have a dry weight of over 600 pounds. The flagpole itself is actually the second flagpole ever to stand in the village. And that's because in 1981, the Republic of Korea donated a flag and flagpole to the villagers of Taesongdong, which happened to stand taller than the flagpole in Gijongdong. So North Korea quickly responded by building a taller flagpole. To this day, the flagpole in Taesongdong stands at 100 meters in height, and the flagpole in Gijongdong stands at approximately 160 meters in height. Now, as we enter into the joint security area itself, I will be able to point out the road leading into the neutral nations camp. And originally, delegates from Switzerland, Sweden, Czechoslovakia, and Poland formed the NNSC. However, to this day, the NNSC is only run by the people from Switzerland, Sweden, who maintain their residency here year-round, and the Polish who attend for biannual meetings. And they were charged with the investigation of all armistice violations inside the demilitarized zone itself. There are several locations that are going to be visible from Checkpoint 3 today, starting with on the right-hand side here, the former Czech and Polish NNSC camp, which is no longer used. And on the left-hand side is the North Korean People's Peace Museum, which was actually constructed in under 48 hours solely for the signing of the armistice, and then the armistice talks were moved to the conference row directly afterwards. Also visible from Checkpoint 3 is the Bridge of No Return. The Bridge of No Return obtained its nickname near the end of the Korean War when Operation Big Switch and Operation Little Switch were conducted, at which point the United Nations Command returned approximately 82,000 prisoners of war, and the North Koreans, or the Korean People's Army, along with the Chinese People's Volunteers, returned approximately 13,000 prisoners of war. Now, during this time, the prisoners were lined up on either side of the bridge, and they were given the choice to either remain in their current country or cross into the country of their choosing. However, once they were to do so, they could never return to the previous country, hence the name Bridge of No Return. The Bridge of No Return lies on the southern boundary of the Joint Security Area, and all the blue buildings you see here belong to the United Nations Command, while the red buildings belong to North Korea or the KPA. Now, prior to 1976, the Joint Security Area was considered a neutral guard location, and both guard forces were able to cross the military demarcation line in this area alone. You can see that North Korea took full advantage of this by building 4 communist guard posts on the southern boundary road of the Joint Security Area, while the United Nations Command built none in the north. You can see Checkpoint 4, how it's isolated from the rest of the Joint Security Area and surrounded on 3 sides by North Korean guard posts. Well, the soldiers at Checkpoint 3 had limited visibility of Checkpoint 4 due to an extremely large yellow poplar tree that grew between the 2 checkpoints. It's due to this that in 1976, the United Nations Command sent out a 5-man civilian work crew accompanied by a 12-man security battalion to conduct a routine tree trimming operation to improve visibility. Upon their arrival, they were met by 28 North Korean guards. However, work did begin as scheduled, but after just 5 minutes, the North Korean guards attacked. The ensuing fight lasted for only 4 minutes, but during that time, our company commander, Captain Arthur Boniface, and First Lieutenant Mark Barrett were brutally axed to death. I will point out a few of the Joint Security Area soldiers in this photo. Some of them are rather hard to see and give you an idea of how outnumbered they were that day. This one is very hard to depict, but this is one Joint Security Area soldier fighting off 7 North Korean guards. Here you can see the helmet of Captain Arthur Boniface, where he was axed to death in front of his own vehicle. And here you can clearly see a North Korean soldier wielding an axe at a Joint Security Area soldier who was First Lieutenant Mark Barrett. It is due to this unprovoked act of violence that a special series of meetings were held, and it was decided that even inside the joint security area, the military demarcation line should still separate the two guard forces. Under these new arrangements, there were no more acts of violence until November 1984, when a Soviet defector on a North Korean-sponsored tour dashed across the military demarcation line in an attempt to defect to freedom. Now, he was followed by North Korean soldiers armed with pistols and rifles in an attempt to capture and or kill him. However, the United Nations Command Quick Reaction Force was immediately alerted and were able to halt and outflank the North Korean main body. During the peak of the fight, there were approximately 30 North Korean soldiers in the northern portion of the UNC Sunken Gardens, which is located in South Korea. And this firefight lasted for approximately 20 minutes. During that time, we had one UNC soldier killed, Corporal Zhang, and one soldier wounded, and the KPA had 3 soldiers killed and 5 soldiers wounded. We will see some North Korean soldiers on our tour today, up on Conference Row especially, and these red armbands, as well as the black armband I'm wearing, states that we are military police. Not all of us are military police, but it says in the armistice, anybody that carries a weapon inside the demilitarized zone must wear these armbands to designate that they are armed in the demilitarized zone. However, North Korea no longer wears them whatsoever. If they do decide to come up closer to the military demarcation line to get a look at everybody, or at any time in general, we just ask that you please do not point, wave, gesture, or communicate either verbally or non-verbally with the North Koreans. And along with providing security, being a security escort here, we also do several humanitarian operations to include the repatriation of remains from the Korean War, as well as we provide humanitarian aid along with the Red Cross, things like food and clothes and medical supplies, things of that sort, into North Korea. We also have several VIP visits, heads of states and dignitaries that visit this area on a frequent timeline, such as the former President of the United States, George W. Bush, former President of South Korea, Lee Myung-pak, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key, and the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, along with the former Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates. Now, just like these dignitaries, you will be escorted by a soldier of our security battalion. As seen here on the right-hand side is a United States infantry soldier. We served 12 months here at this duty station. And on the left-hand side is a Republic of Korea, or ROK soldier. They served 21 months here to conclude their 2-year term in the military service. All soldiers here do have above average aptitude standards of a normal soldier, as well as a clean military and civilian background. And it's due to all this that we are the most forwardly deployed unit on the Korean Peninsula, and we do stand face to face with our enemy on a daily basis, that the United Nations Command, the Republic of Korea, and the United States Army has given us our motto that, ladies and gentlemen, we do so proudly state, we truly are in front of them all. Thank you.